Let's go against the norm. As of today, 12 NFL teams have yet to win their first Super Bowl. So let's rank them. Let's see who going into 2026 has the best chance to make some history. As always, drop your predictions in the comments section. I'm not going to make you do 12. Give me your top three. Which teams do you think have the best chance to, well, raise the Lombardi? We'll start here at number 10 with the Carolina Panthers, and I love their draft, right? You bring in a guy like Ted McMillan, give your young quarterback a true X, number one wide receiver. That connection should be special. And then you also brought in guys like Nick Scourton and Princely Uman on that defensive front. Overall, a very young team. But if you can carry over the momentum from the end of last year, as far as the connection that Bryce Young had with the players and Dave Canales, you could make some noise in this wide open division. But I just don't think that this year there can be that figuring it out process like there have been in years prior. Bryce Young can't get off to a slow start. They need to get hot and they need to stay consistent. And again, then they can put themselves in a situation where if you win the division, at that point, anybody's got a shot. But you need to at least make the playoffs, and that can't happen with a slow start. Now, at number 9 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I'll say this because I'm sure Jacksonville fans, you've heard this 100 times, but they do have the youngest coach and GM in the league today, and that doesn't really bode well as far as winning the Super Bowl. However, they've already left their mark. They traded from 5-2 with my Cleveland Browns and maybe drafted the greatest collegiate talent we've ever seen in Travis Hunter, a guy that if he can have a similar impact on Colorado for Jacksonville, we're going to be in for a treat because that dude is going to be on a one-way train to being an all-time great. But outside of losing some veterans this offseason, this team has gotten better, and I'm excited to see how Liam Cohen can maximize Trevor Lawrence's talent because, to be honest, coming out of Clemson, he was looked at to be an all-time great level player, and he just hasn't been that. So now on his third or fourth new head coach, Trevor Lawrence needs to prove something this season, and with Brian Thomas Jr. coming back, with an exciting running back room still with Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, I'm excited to see if this team in a relatively wide open division can win it under Liam Cohen in year number 1. Now, if anything, the Atlanta Falcons will be one of the most exciting teams to watch in the NFL this season. And on defense, last year, they struggled. But what did they do? Well, they went out there and added so many young, exciting pieces to this defense. They should be miles better in 2025. You drafted Jalen Walker. You drafted James Pierce Jr., two guys that could have been top 10 picks in the draft are now both on this defensive front. You also brought in Xavier Watts, one of my favorite collegiate players as well, on the back end of the defense. So again, this defense should be miles better. On offense now, they're ready to explode. You now have a quarterback heading into a year as a first full-time starter. He has some experience under his belt. He should be a lot more comfortable. And by the way, he has Bijan around him. He has Tyler Algier, a great offensive line, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Maybe they can get something out of him. But this offense is ready to explode, and man, that quarterback has a rocket attached to his arm. So they should be exciting to watch in a wide open division. Now, at number 7 is the Arizona Cardinals. I love their draft. I think in 5 years, we might look back on this draft and say the Cardinals absolutely won it by a large margin, not because of the depth that they have, but because I think they have potential superstar players from the draft this year. Walter Nolan is dealing with an injury, but he should be ready to go. Will Johnson, a guy that was looked at to be a lock as a top 5 pick in the draft before the medicals started to come into play. But this is a team that with Walter Nolan and Will Johnson, they have potentially two guys that can command this defense for years to come, or at least in my estimation. I love the prospects, at least both of them coming out of college. You also brought in a guy like Josh Sweat, a Super Bowl champion now, a guy that could be a great veteran mouthpiece for this younger defensive group, but they should be miles better. You're seeing a trend here. I think these teams can improve dramatically. I do think that the Cardinals have a top 5 easiest schedule in the league. It all comes down to what can you do offensively? Can you maximize Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, James Conner, and get the best out of Kyler Murray all at the same time? If you can with an easier schedule, I think you can make the playoffs. And again, once your foot is in the door, anything can happen. At number 6 is the LA Chargers. And Jim Harbaugh couldn't have left a better first impression. But what now, right? The playoff appearance is behind us. We now had to improve. But I think this team had a complete identity shift this offseason. Last year, there was a lot of questions on offense, but you knew you could rely on this defense. Now that's kind of the opposite. The defense lost a lot of pieces. Guys like Poona Ford, Joey Bosa, and potentially Asante Samuel as well. So you're losing three key starters on this defense, but you've added to the offense. You got Najee Harris, you got Mekhi Becton, etc., etc. Trey Harris in the draft, Omarion Hampton in the draft. So this offense gets a lot of juice added to it, which it needed, but the defense also lost a lot. So in a loaded division with a tougher schedule, you're asking an offense that last year didn't have to win a lot of shootout games. This year, I think that's going to have to be on their table. They're going to have to be able to go out there and outscore the Chiefs, outscore the Denver Broncos in these tougher games. And if they can't, I think that this team's going to be in a rough situation. As you guys know, I think they're on the cusp of making and missing the playoffs. So for that reason, in a tough division, they're down here at number 6. But hey, they're in a great spot going forward with a great coach and quarterback. At number 5 is the Minnesota Vikings. You lost Sam Darnold. So what? Right? Now you get to see the potential that you drafted last year in J.J. McCarthy at the quarterback position. I think this year in the draft, you had a great one. You got Donovan Jackson, a guy that showed a lot of versatility and greatness at Ohio State last year, playing inside and out. And you also brought in a guy like Ty Felton, who can temporarily replace a guy like Jordan Addison, as he has his issues off the field. Simply put, this is a Super Bowl ready roster. You brought in Jonathan Allen, 2 offensive linemen from Indianapolis. It all just depends on the development and the comfortability of your now full-time starter and technically rookie in J.J. McCarthy. I think that he's going to be a lot better than people give him his flowers and credit for. But at the end of the day, how often do we see a first-time starter in a high-pressure situation go out there and win it all? It doesn't happen often, right? So for that reason, in a tough division, tough conference, Minnesota is at number 5, just like the Chargers. I think they're on the cusp of making and missing the playoffs despite having a ready Super Bowl roster. At number 4 is the Houston Texans. Do I think they have a better roster top to bottom than the 2 teams below them? No. However, they're in an easier division, and they have a much clearer path as far as going to the playoffs and being in a great spot to compete for a championship. This is a team that their objective this offseason was not to get better. It was, how do we make C.J. Stroud's job as hard as humanly possible? They traded both of their all-pro offensive linemen. They traded away Stephon Diggs and replaced them with 2 rookie wide receivers. And though I do love a guy like Jaden Higgins, who they got in the second round out of Iowa State, I think he could be a star. He is still a rookie, and he's going to need some time to develop. So you're asking C.J. Stroud and going in next year, who, oh, by the way, you've also had injuries to your running back room. You're asking him with Nico Collins to single-handedly carry this offense. Now, they did it last year, but it was a lot easier when you have Tank Dell on the field, Stephon Diggs on the field, Joe Mixon having a great year. Now this year, there's nothing but C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, and a bunch of injury and questions around those guys. So the only reason they're at number 4 is the fact that I do believe in this defense. I believe in your quarterback, and you do have a legitimate go-to option in an easier division. So for the clearer path, they're at number 4. My number 3 might be the most, stingy organization in professional sports. The Cincinnati Bengals finally figured out their rookie situation with Shamar Stewart and others. And now we're still waiting on the sack leader from last season in Trey Hendrickson to come to a deal. As of right now, he's reported to camp. He's not holding out anymore, but he's still looking for a new contract. So we'll have to see if they can get that done going into the season. Usually those things do. They find amends. But for the Cincinnati Bengals, you didn't really add much on either side of the ball besides the rookies. So you're going into next year with the same game plan as last year. Go out there, drop 35 points a game, and hopefully the defense can find 1 or 2 stops along the way. That is really the game plan. I mean, you have great quarterback, you have great weapons, maybe the best receiver in the game, but this defense will always be the reason why they will never get past what they have in years prior. Because in the Super Bowl run, as we remember, they had a pretty good defense. Since then, it's gotten worse and worse and worse because their management just doesn't want to surround their superstar level quarterback with legitimate talent. At number 2 is going to be the Detroit Lions. This was a team that was 15-2 last season with a mountain of injuries they had to deal with along the way, with one of the best divisions in NFL history along the way as well. So 15-2 is absolutely amazing that they were able to accomplish that with all the hurdles that they had. Now you're going into a season after a 15-2 run, and you lost both of your coordinators. Ben Johnson goes to Chicago, a division rival. Aaron Glenn goes to the AFC side of things with the Jets. So there will definitely be questions around this team's ability to execute in their, I guess, decision making in big time games week to week, especially in a loaded division. But we know they have the talent. We know they have those special it guys on offense. You have Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon Ra, etc. On defense, you have the guy that was the runaway defensive player of the year last year in Aiden Hutchinson. You have those captains, so to speak, that can lead the charge. But will the talent be enough to overcome the coordinator loss? That's the biggest question for Detroit. But again, they were so great last year. I could see them being that yet again. And at number one, some would say they have the best quarterback in the league. At the bare minimum, you have one of the best home field advantages and fan bases in the league in the Buffalo Bills. Good roster, great quarterback, and a great coaching staff to go along with it. The defense has even improved, which was really your Achilles heel last season. The question now with this Buffalo Bills roster is the supporting pieces around your quarterback, the weapons. Can you rely on Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, who has some contractual issues right now, and Khalil Shakir to lead this offense next to Josh Allen to where they need to go, which is ultimately getting some big-time key playoff wins? That's a big question, right? I love Khalil Shakir, but is he on that level? I'm not sure. Joe Brady's going to have a big task ahead of him. I think if there was a year, this is the year. You know, the Chiefs, they're coming off a Super Bowl loss. Maybe some teams have found out how to beat them, although the blueprint has been there. But this is the same story every year. You have the talent, you have the quarterback, and you are in those key playoff games every year. But can your defense get the necessary stops? That's the big question. But I think this year is the best year, if any, that the Chiefs do get dethroned, and Buffalo has the best chance to do it. Now, as always, drop your predictions in the comment section below. Let me know who's too high, too low. Let me know down below. But again, I think Buffalo, Detroit, the cities that I guess just coincide so much with the Browns as far as playoff success, this could be the year the Buffalo Bills or Detroit get over the hump. And I'm excited to see them because I'm kind of sub-rooting for them along the way as a fan of a team that has had similar success. But that's going to do it, man. I'll see you guys next week. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and football's right around the corner.